Hello, this is a video specifically around creating the perfect comparison answer for component 1 of Film Studies GCSE. Now, I've got an example here of mine that went through last year, and it was specifically around Dracula and the Lost Boys, because we tend to change our comparison film every year depending on class vote. Now, this got 20 out of 20, and not only that, it was used as exemplar during the training for the examiners, which means I know for a fact this is a 20 out of 20. And I'm going to sort of talk a little bit about how the rationale behind this and how you can create your own perfect 20-mark answer for the comparison component. Okay. Starting off, in both Dracula and the Lost Boys, characters are represented differently. They share a common denominator of horror and vampires, but one is post-Hays Code film, and one has Hays Code regulations within it. The characters of David in the Lost Boys and the character of Dracula in Dracula are both significant in representation. Now, last year, the question was specifically about characters. You had to pick one character from each film and sort of analyse that character. Now, what the candidate has done so well here is say, both Dracula and the Lost Boys character are represented differently. They've started off with an immediate comparison. And as you can see, the examiner has given them a tick straight away because they are immediately talking about difference. They share a common denominator, another tick. The idea is they share something. So you're constantly piling on this comparison. And they've made reference then to specific elements, which has got them another tick. One is post-Hays Code, context, tick, and one has Hays Code regulations within it, tick, because they've accurately recognised that Dracula was pre-Hays Code, but obviously the ideas and tenets of the Hays Code were within it. So, and then they've specifically pointed out which characters they're focusing on, which has gained them another tick. So your intro, if you're checklisting it with me right now, you should be linking both films together in some way, referencing something specific like characters, and also, if you can, reference a bit of context, even if it doesn't ask for it. And in this case, it did not ask for context. You're still getting credited for it because it's relevant to what you're talking about. And in this case, the relevance comes from understanding where this film fits in to history. Okay? The use of the narrative convention of a Byronic hero describes Dracula perfectly. Good. Tick, tick, tick. We're immediately into character. He is represented as seductive and powerful while still being violent and evil. His line, "The Children of the Night," proves his poetic streak and further pushes his role as a Byronic hero. He is clearly a main character. None of that is particularly complex. None of it is a complex concept to get your head around. The idea of quoting something from the text in terms of dialogue, understanding what the character is like being seductive and powerful. You're stating the obvious and still getting marked for it, okay? Likewise, there's your key comparative. In Michael's initiation scene, we see a center-framed spotlit shot of David. We're using cinematography here, immediately getting ourselves a tick. This established him as the leader of the group, as he's frequently shot like this. Again, nothing complex. You're pointing out why this character is the way they are. You're answering the question really specifically and making consistent comparisons. The costume of Dracula is very European and reflects aristocracy. This portrays and represents his character as one with remarkable wealth and class, but also that he belongs to a bygone era, as he contrasts Renfield heavily. His iconic black cape may be a glimpse of the bat form that he can transform into. Oppositely, again, the English doesn't have to be perfect. David's costume is very sexual and appealing to a teenage audience. It consists of a black leather jacket and trousers with spiked hair. This was typical of the 80s and reflects the film's social context. She hasn't necessarily gone deep into social context here, but she's made reference to the fact that it does reference it. And she's also linked costume of those characters to the characters themselves overall. Remember, the questions on character, you could talk about absolutely anything to do with that character. Up here, we talked about cinematography. Here, we're talking about mise en scène. There's so much you can talk about, okay? Both characters are represented as having large amounts of power and the ability to terrify. In Dracula, whenever Dracula should look scary or imposing, the editing breaks rhythm and we see a quick close-up of his face with his eyes brightly lit. This directs the audience straight to his face and emphasises his creepy nature. The Lost Boys opening scene features an aerial shot from the vampire's POV as they swoop over town. This reinforces their representation as inhuman beings. The representation of David as a leader is especially prominent during the scene of Michael's initiation. So before, we've had quite a few generic comparisons, but now we are getting into those specific elements, okay? So very specific key scene references, and this is where your 20 marks are starting to come from. During the scene of Michael's initiation, the boys beginning to chant, which almost replicates peer pressure. Now, Michael's initiation is the name of the scene. In your film class, you may have been, it may be referred to as something like key scene 1, key scene 2. An examiner does not know what key scenes you've covered. They can give suggestions, but the teacher can cover anything they want. So please make sure that you name the scene or describe it briefly, like she has done here. During the scene of Michael's initiation is enough for the examiner to know what you're talking about. After Michael's drinks, a montage of close-ups and editing techniques like superimposition and slow motion is seen. This is overarching metaphorical message about the drug epidemic in the 1980s. The rebellion and peer pressure is represented by David's character, Tick, because it talks about his character and it links it to context. David's representation subverts the typical nuclear family reflecting the film's historical context. Instead of a mother, a father, and 2 children, David's family is the gang of vampires. This dismisses the prominent conservatism of the 1980s. In Dracula, traditional Gothic and classic horror is reflected through Dracula's character. He represents the old folklore of Vlad the Impaler in the 17th century, where the idea of vampires originally stemmed from. Bela Lugosi's interpretation of Dracula is also one that has shaped the way we see vampires forever. So again, talking quite frequently and with great depth about the context. This directly contrasts David's representation. He and other vampires in The Lost Boys are of a new era of vampires. And again, there's a comparison down the bottom. And notice the comments from the examiner at the bottom. Band 5, excellent ability to compare films, clear grasp of context with an emerging perception of similarities and differences. This got 20 out of 20. You can 100% replicate a 20 out of 20 question by following those tenets. 1, continually compare. 2, be specific with your contexts and your key scenes. And 3, link to the question specifically. Do not stop comparing. It is the way that you do it. Okay? Thank you very much for listening, and I hope it's been useful.